Hello, hello. This is the latest LEGO Star Wars A-Wing Starfighter, the Resistance version at that, for the Rise of Skywalker. I'm going to go through this very quickly, show you all the major features and functions and the two figures, then come back to a deeper dive, look at some of the specific details, tell you my thoughts about it, and also hopefully answer some viewer questions from the preview period. So about this A-Wing. It's intended to be an RZ2 model, so not exactly the same ones that we saw in Return of the Jedi. In all honesty, though, it is close enough that if you're not a stickler for the finest of little details, this would make a fine substitution for the Return of the Jedi one, in my opinion. The completed build is pretty smooth on its upper and side surfaces with not too many exposed studs. I think that's a very good thing for this particularly sleek and aerodynamic looking craft. I personally generally am not afraid of studded surfaces on Lego builds, because that's the whole thing about Lego, but here I think it really helps to hide most of those away. The engine pods are angled in, and that's pretty simple how that was done, with each one just being attached with a Technic pin or half-axle pin into a Technic brick, and they're fairly well located, so there's not too much room for them to wiggle about. And these fairly specialized fin pieces that were initially introduced for this type of model, but just not this particular version of it, work really well with the white color. One of them has a sticker on it. This does rely on stickers a fair amount for some of its appearance and its shaping, with these that go around the cockpit, the canopy being pretty important. And also these right here, these are stickers. I actually had to redo those a couple of times to get them to look right, because you want them to really come right up to the edge here to have this nice continuous green band. The cockpit opens forward, just swings up, and there's plenty of space for the figure to sit in there, but he has no controls and no console, interestingly. The model has retractable landing skids at the rear and the front. The front one tucks away nicely. The rear ones continue to stick out just a little bit, but they're mostly obscured from most angles by the engine pods and the fins. There are also two spring-loaded shooters here, which are really, really well integrated. They're deep in there. You don't see the tails of the bolts sticking out anywhere, and they have this nice mechanism that they introduced on the previous RZ2 that works exceptionally well, and it's really well hidden away also. You just push right there on the little black spot, and it just has a remote firing mechanism. I like that. The actual ship has its lasers out on swivels on the wingtips, and that's what these represent. They've got them nice and small here. I think the last version of this was doing them a little bit too big. Maybe they're a little bit too small now, but I think this is much closer to the way it should be. I just wish that that piece right there was available in a color other than blue these days. You can only get black ones from old sets, and they're rather expensive on the secondary market these days. The pilot figure on the left is Snap Wexley, and as far as I can tell, that figure is unchanged from its first appearance in a X-Wing Microfighter set. The character on the right is Lieutenant Connix, who in real life is played by Billie Lourd, who is the daughter of the late Carrie Fisher. Nice to get her in Lego form permanently, and both of these I think are very good looking figures. I really appreciate the dual molded helmet for the pilot there. They've done a nice job of, with this one, of keeping it nice and subtle with the separate trans yellow piece there that is not able to be brought up or anything. You can't raise the visor under there, but it's nicely done. The print is good, and you have no alternate face there, but you do get an alternate face for Lieutenant Connix, and yeah, I think that both of these are good for what they are. Lastly, it's a very small set, so you can't have expected too many spare pieces. This set retails for $30 US, and on release day, Triple Force Friday, it was already 10 to 20% off at many major retailers. I think that is a pretty fair price for the amount of stuff that you get here. Price to part ratio is fine, even with the suggested retail price, but this is already $10 US less than the last A-Wing, which did come with more. It had a separate side build, or a couple small side builds, but they weren't all that valuable, and ultimately for what you get here, I think that you do pay a fair price. That pretty much takes care of the overview of everything, so let's move into my personal thoughts and also answering some of your questions. Overall, I very much like this. I think that the designer did a very good job of replicating an RZ2 in a reasonable size, reasonable scale, with a reasonable build that people can just follow along with instructions with no complications whatsoever and just basic normal parts. A lot of people ask me if I think this is the best A-Wing that LEGO has made to date. And unfortunately, I have a lot of bias, and I have to say no. I'm going to vote for the 2017 version, which is not the same craft. It's not even trying to be the same craft. It's supposed to be the RZ-1. The 2017 one was a Return of the Jedi model, and I am just completely biased towards that from flying it, from the old games. On Windows 3.1, my shutdown sound customized for the entire computer for quite a long time was the entire sequence from Return of the Jedi of intensify the forward batteries. I don't want anything to get through. Intensify forward firepower. It's too late. Crash. That whole thing. That was the sound that whole sequence would play from Return of the Jedi as I shut down my computer, because it used to take forever to shut down a computer, and it just felt appropriate. So, I'm just too biased, and that Return of the Jedi model was the one. But as an RZ2, though, this is very good and definitely a lot cooler than the one that they did for the Rebels show, which was, again, not intended to look exactly the same. There's a different graphical style that was used for that. But for what it is, this is very well done. And yeah, I couldn't have asked for too much to have been done better. This bothers me, definitely. The blue right there. The blue on the back, not so much. This feels like it's lacking a little bit in detail right here, but looking at reference material, I don't think it should have been too much more detailed than that. Oh, definitely this could have used and should have had some form of console or some form of controls, or better yet, both in there. Just a handful of additional pieces would really help with that, because there's plenty of space for the figure. Gosh, that cockpit is just so generous for such a small ship. Really nice. Also could have had some accommodation for his blaster. I mean, you could attach it to the open stud right there if you want, but yeah, small things would have made this better. The whole thing with stickers with this is actually a deal. Like, these are just regular stickers. That's regular. These do require a little bit of care to line them up properly, because you do need a little bit of gap on either side. And then you do want them to follow the edge. Like this one is all the way back at the edge in order to get right up against the green plastic back here, the green bricks, to continue this green stripe going all the way across. And then this one you want to have absolutely parallel, and it just follows that line, the chine, where you switch from this conical shape to the cylindrical shape. So you do want to definitely exercise care there. But if you don't get it perfect, it's okay. On the other hand, these, I feel, do need to be perfect. I'm talking about these long ones right here, which they may be difficult to spot for people who aren't specifically looking for them or aren't recognizing exactly the shape of this piece. Let me see if I can just pull this off right now to really drive that home, just what I'm talking about, and how important it is to get those little stickers. Gosh, I really got this on there well. Get those little stickers, those little thin ones, just right. See, it's right along this edge. That's all sticker, and it needs to come right up there, and it needs to be all the way on the edge. So you're not able to connect at the end here. You want to actually assemble these pieces up here first, then put that on there, and it just takes more care than I think most people want to put into applying stickers. Stickers are always an issue of contention, but here I feel like you gain a lot in terms of presentability of the set if you do put a tremendous amount of care into your sticker application. Also, taking this one and having it as far back as possible, taking this one and having it as far forward as possible so that the fine little black lines there line up and touch, really helps. Having these here with the white portion all the way at the far inside edge, all that is really important. I think that for most of them, if you don't get it perfect, it's going to be just like with any regular set. But these here feel very important to get just right. A lot of people have also asked, just in general, about the fact that so many of the sets in at least this wave of releases are just rehashes of things that we've gotten before. And they've asked what I think about that. This is an RZ2 A-Wing. but it's pretty close to an RZ1 in its appearance. And it is an A-Wing, and A-Wings have been active for a long time in universe. And that's really a tough thing, because it's not Lego's fault that this is occurring for the most part. It's mostly because of, you can blame Disney, but you can also blame the fans, because people want original trilogy. People say, oh, original trilogy is the way. Original trilogy is the one. Original trilogy or bust. So people making these movies are like, okay, let's try to do as much original trilogy stuff as we can. And then those same people are like, oh, Disney's creatively bankrupt and they're ruined Star Wars because they don't have any ideas anymore. Lego doesn't, nobody has any ideas anymore. So you just can't win one way or the other. It's just not possible to make people happy in general. But I think that for those fans who like the old things and just want to get better and better, more detailed, more accurate versions of them in Lego form, even if they're not the exact original ones, I think it's cool. It's not like you're forced to buy the new stuff. That's one thing that's a major misconception. A lot of folks say, oh, they're trying to cram rehashes down our throats all the time to get more money out of us. No, they're not trying to cram rehashes down our throats. They're just trying to sell stuff that people want. That's really all it comes down to. It's a lot more innocent than a lot of people think that it is. So I'm fine with it. If they make something and you already have one that's perfectly good, then don't get the new one if you don't want it. It's that simple. And then just one more question that I want to directly answer from a user named Watto Extreme. He asks, would you rather dab on the haters or the alligators? Dude, have you ever seen an alligator? This one right here, he's about 50 years old, okay? He'd been attacked before. This is what happens when you try to mess with an alligator. I'm not going to mess with an alligator. Plus, why would I mess with an alligator? I have much respect for alligators. They're true OGs. They've been around for what? Millions of years now? Doing what? Surviving. So I have much respect for gators. Haters? Absolutely not. So haters get all the dabs. Gators get all the... And on that terrible disappointment, it is time to end. But if you'd like to see the build for this set, it's not very long. It's not a very complicated set. And I have published, as usual, the real-time pure build, as well as the sped-up speed build. Choose one if you'd like. Check them out in the links at the end of the video, which is right now. I'll talk to you again soon.